And we are live. Welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It's your host, Rob, aka B-Ball Archives, and we got the bums in the house, AJ, James. But it's a special day today because we have a first-time guest, John Elizondo, former sports reporter for WOAI News 4 and Fox 25. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. AJ's been telling me for a long time he wants me to be on this podcast, and every time I stop hearing from him. So then today I was waiting for the link, and I didn't get the link until about 10 minutes beforehand. And I was
That's how we
thinking,
do
I
it,
don't know
man.
if this is going to happen again. So
Too
I'm
much
glad
peek
to-
behind the curtain, man. We're not WWE over here. We try to keep some kayfabe.
I'm glad to be on now.
We're glad to have you on. Anytime we can get someone with the know-how and expertise that you have, it certainly helps us have discussions, especially ones as important as this.
Absolutely, because this Project Marvel has gotten everyone, Spurs fans, San Antonio residents, just fired up. There's a lot of people for it, against it, a lot of strong opinions. And our group chat has been really, really strong, and this has been the main topic over the past few days. But John, I got to get your insight right now. Well, how are you feeling about Project Marvel right now?
I'll be neutral on this to start because I'll let you guys do the fireworks. I know where this is going in that sense. But for me, what's been the most fascinating thing about Project Marvel is that this has been one giant soap opera and everything about it. From city council to things that are going on to the sources that are speaking. It's just been I've been glued to it every day. I'm waiting every day on Twitter to see what's the latest thing that somebody says, what's the catty response, what's the viral clip that's happening in a District 10 town hall. I could care less what's happening in District 10, and then all of a sudden, I see things that are happening over there last night, and it's just fascinating. I mean, there's nothing on TV that's more riveting than what's happening right now when talking about Project Marvel here in San Antonio. So with that being said, that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's just complete interest and just curious to see how is this going to unfold, not just this week, but then leading into November with the election, and then potentially another election next May if the city does go through with the term sheet.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But ultimately, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. The people can kind of just put their money where their mouth is in November. The ballots are going to be open, so people of Bexar County can really make things happen, whether they want to or whether they want to delay this even further, like the mayor's wanting. James, how are you feeling about it now that we understand all these recent developments?
Well, I want to start by echoing John's kind of neutral tone. I want to emphasize that I understand the general direction of where the mayor is coming from, and this is a very important decision for this community, not only now, but for generations to come. And I do want to give her credit in the sense that the situation that she inherited is not as cut and dry clean as we might think it is. Truth be told, Ron Nirenberg did not do a great job managing the deficit that the city finds itself in. And that is something that we have to clean up. However, the way she has handled this from a public relations standpoint has been no short of abysmal, I think. She has done no coalition building and no attempt at it really over the past week. And so to me, that's been, I think, the biggest strike against her. And that's where I'll start.
Yeah, that's, that makes all the sense in the world. Like, even if you are, really touching on a subject where people they have a lot of polarizing opinions, you have to kind of have some nuance to it. And a lot of people are feeling like she doesn't have that per se. AJ, is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some nuance to it for sure. But it wasn't until yesterday she finally came out and said, hey, I want the Spurs to stay and I want to work with them. It's like, where's that been for the past, month or so? Like, keep in mind, this project started way before she was even elected mayor. Like this project started late last year or sometime around this time last year when we first saw like the conversation of it happening. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was before she was elected, and now she comes in like a bull in a china shop. Less than 3 months into her tenure, and she wants to go toe to toe with probably the biggest logo in the entire city. That's not a great look, and she's not being really like, she's not just being, I don't know, cordial about it. That's my biggest thing is she's every time she gets in front of a camera or in front of a crowd, it's always the topic. And I mean, we could be talking about whatever you want to talk about, and all of a sudden it's like Project Marvel. And it's like, okay, cool. But then she has these like catty like remarks online. I saw her like kind of egging on Don Harris. Like, you're gonna egg on Don Harris? Like, what are you doing, lady? So that's my biggest pet peeve in this whole thing is I know that she has the vision of San Antonio and she wants it to be the 7th largest city like it is. I get that. How do we get there? We do projects like this. If the Spurs are offering $2.1 billion with a B and you're going, that's not good enough. I mean, what, like that's crazy to me. That's just absolutely crazy to me.
Right. And these massive construction projects always have overages. There's always something that you need to change, something that needs to get redone or fixed because it wasn't done properly the first time. And the Spurs are footing the bill for all of that. And any of the overages that come into the project, they're going to pay for all of it. So I really view this as, a little bit of a no-brainer, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of pushback from people that are wanting to see development in other areas of the city. And to a certain degree, I understand that, but this is how you start that expansion in San Antonio. This is how you really have a place where all of the boroughs, all of the different areas of the city can kind of unite.
100%. So
let me give,
go ahead, John.
I want to give a little bit of context because you and James both touched on some things that I was going to bring up. You really have to understand everything before we've gotten to these last 2 weeks to understand why she's acting the way she is. Why she's been very combative and being an adversary to certain people in the council. It started when she got elected. She's been having issues trying to retain staff. Communications director, quit 1 week onto the job or was fired or however you want to spin it. And then, she's been having issues with people on the council, people that don't see eye to eye with her, people that don't like maybe the way that she does things in a militaristic type of way. She comes from a military background. She's not afraid to show it because she's not, she doesn't show any softness. She's my way or the highway. We're going to do things in a very military type of way. So she's, butted heads with Mark White, who's been the biggest person that she's been fighting through this whole thing. And you had these little, battles. And one of the biggest ones recently was the CCR that she tried to change. Basically was a different way of instituting policy or bringing policy before to vote on within the city council. And she ruffled some feathers, and 3 of the most senior members of the city council didn't agree with her. They had a memo out there. And within that battle, what resulted was later last week, she basically handed out assignments to committee chairs, and she left all 3 of them off chairs. And they're the most senior members of city council. They know how city council works compared to everybody else. And so there's been these little battles in between, but now this has become the battle where she feels that she can win public favor. And I know that sounds weird because, we are Spurs fans right here and we think the public cares about the Spurs, but there is a large portion of San Antonio who doesn't really care about the Spurs. And it's not that they don't care about them in the sense of, they want them to leave, but it's just like they feel that the Spurs shouldn't handle everything that's going on in the city. They shouldn't be, we shouldn't just be giving them the silver platter. They want to fight against them to an extent. And so she's been rallying those troops, and she's been vocal, and she's gotten bloody with it, and she's made it, muddy. And, the best comparison I could think about it is, this is, just like in any kind of basketball, game that you see, and I see it more in college than in the pros, but you have those teams that like to win rock fights. They play rock fights on the court. They play ugly. They play a lot of defense. They don't score a lot, But if they can keep the score into the 50s, they're going to beat you. And that's what she's doing right now. She's on the defensive. She doesn't care who's going to get bloody. She doesn't care whose feelings she hurts. She really, I mean, in a way, it's kind of fascinating that she doesn't care what it means for her ultimately. I think she thinks that this is the right way to go, but really, this seems to be the only way to go for her to fight something as colossal as the Spurs. And that's been the other issue, is that this is Project Marvel, right? This isn't the Spurs. This isn't the Spurs project. Spurs aren't proposing a renovation to the Alamo Dome. They're not proposing everything else that goes into downtown. They're just a small piece of this. And instead of the focus being on this giant project, the way she sees I can get rid of this whole project is let me attack Goliath first, bloody them up, kill that, and then everything else will start. Well, the dominoes will fall after that. And so I think, like as James said, this is the part that I haven't been very happy about, is just the rhetoric she has been using with the Spurs, the tone she's been using, how combative she's been about it, and the fact that she's making them this villain that doesn't really exist. You know, I mean, maybe to an extent, you know, yeah, I get it. You know, there's billionaires and, you know, they should pay for their own stadium kind of thing. But in a way, you know, this is an organization that has proven that they've been, you know, strong members of the community. They have players who have been strong members of the community. They have 52 plus years of goodwill in this city. And, you know, how do we make them seem ugly? And so the way she makes them seem ugly, and it helps that they're not saying a word. I mean, we got R.C. Buford, who puts out a release yesterday, and that's the only thing we've heard from anybody, really. So they haven't really been on the offensive about this.
Didn't thank the mayor at all.
But so she gets into this whole thing, and now she's just going to start throwing jabs. And she started throwing jabs and trying to make it seem as though they are any other sports organization that is the evil empire that, you know, just wants a stadium that will be funded entirely by local taxpayers. They'll threaten to move if they're not going to get what they want. And I don't believe the Spurs operate that same way. As long as the Holts are in charge of them, they don't operate that way. We have seen at least 20 plus years of culture building by that organization to prove that they are not going to do something as drastic as that. They are not Jerry Jones, you know. They're not going to be crazy. And so I think from that point of view, that's where I think a lot of people have fallen out of favor with her in the way that she's going about this. Because you're right, James, they all agree with what she's trying to do. It makes sense. It's common sense.
Yeah,
but going
absolutely.
About it
absolutely. But we have a lot of people that feel like Wiz does. Give me a poppin' downtown or give me death. We will not lose the Spurs. And so when you have a lot of people within San Antonio that feel that way, there's going to be people that are fighting it emotionally. And it looks like we just lost AJ momentarily, and he will be back just in a second. But yeah, it's something that it's always going to spark an emotional debate. James, you were saying?
Well, I wanted to run a couple of things by John because he's the real no in this situation. A couple of things that I've been hearing, and I just want to distinguish fact from fiction on a few of the things that coming into the campaign and maybe prior to Gino Ortiz-Jones taking over that we might have heard. Is it true that none of her internal staff is from San Antonio? I
have not explored that deeply. I do know that the one communication officer I do know was San Antonio resident, was involved in the San Antonio community. But beyond that, I'm not privy to the people that are on her staff.
I don't want to be the guy falling for the shark picture on the internet, you know, the shark swimming down the highway. So I want to make sure that I'm at least being fair. But it has been 32 years, to your point earlier, it has been 32 years since the Spurs moved into the Alamo Dome. They moved into the Alamo Dome because they needed an upgrade from Hemisphere Arena. It can be argued in that time, I'm 32 years old. I'll be 33 in November. In that time, the city has treated this franchise like a second-class citizen. Not once have the Spurs complained about their arena location. Not once have they threatened to move. Yet we stuck them in a cavernous football stadium built for an NFL team that we never got. That we got outbid on and outclassed on by a city like Jacksonville in their illustrious vape shop-based economy. They stayed there for 10 years And all the while, we're pushing for a downtown arena.
Yeah.
We didn't have the foresight. Our leaders didn't have the foresight to do that. We pushed them out to the east side in the name of economic development. And we all see how that never came to pass.
And James, real quick, just I'm going to jump in. When we built it in the east side, the city and the county said, hey, we're going to build around the stadium. And they never did that. That's not on the Spurs. Continue, James.
Yeah, well, and they were trying to use eminent domain. Turns out people don't want to give up their land. Neither here nor there. But in the meantime, the Spurs won 5 championships. Up until recently, they were the winningest organization across all of American sports by percentage. And they've, to your point earlier, John, outside of any company not named HEB, the Spurs have put more time, energy, effort, and goodwill into this city than anybody, any individual, any corporation. And that's why when people from San Antonio say there is a unique relationship here, a lot of people from the outside don't understand it. And I think Gina Ortiz-Jones is fulfilling a lot of people's worst fears of her being an outsider.
One thing that she kept punning on also is the question of Project Marvel during the campaign. Whenever they were doing their debates or they do their town halls, people would ask, hey, what do you think about Project Marvel? What are your thoughts? And she would continue to punt and say, well, I need more information. And everyone's like, okay, cool, whatever. And no one really pressed her on it. And then now it's like, we should have pressed her a lot harder on it because now we're seeing kind of the results of it. It's bothersome to me. And John and I have talked about this. I mean, to her blue in the face. When the Alamo Dome got done, it was already outdated. And it hasn't gotten better. And I don't care what anyone says. I was listening to In the Building today, and Mike and Rudy were talking about, oh, when we went to the Dome in the Final Four and stuff, it was great. Well, yeah, dude, you're on the court, you're on the field. Of course it was. But you know what? It's a shitty experience for that arena to have that little thing in the middle that you call a jumbotron is pathetic, is what it is. And I want everyone to understand that this Project Marvel is more than just the Spurs. It is so many jobs are being created. So much money is going back into the local economy. The taxpayers, if you're a renter or a homeowner, which a lot of people are renters in San Antonio, you're not going to get taxed on. It's all coming from out of town people. And I don't give a shit if your family's coming from out of town and they have to pay a little extra taxes. You're not going to notice it. We're talking such a small percentage. And also, go to any other major city in the U.S. Tell me which ones don't have a sports tax at this point. You go to Vegas, there's a resort fee for every time you go. No one says a word about that. But we're going to bitch about this sports tax in San Antonio. Fuck out of here.
Well,
Sorry.
and that's two things. There are two things that over the past week that Gina Ortiz-Jones has really done that have stuck in my craw that I feel like the tenor of the conversation has gotten a bit out of hand. But criticism is more than warranted in the fact that she is on record in an interview with KSAT 12 saying, we are the 7th biggest city in the country and we need to start acting like it. Well, Chica, now is the time.
Right.
And you need to put your money where your mouth is and start acting like it. The second thing is her favorite word of the day, which is transparency. And I said, John, in the group chat with AJ and Rob, and I think I said it on Twitter as well, her saying the word transparency is starting to sound like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. It's losing its meaning. Because I'm looking at the way things have been communicated over the past 5 days, 6 days. I'm seeing one side calling for transparency, but not answering any questions about the transparency they're seeking. And I'm seeing another side that's being, as you mentioned, cast as the villain, actually being transparent, putting their name to numbers, impact, what they're going to be doing. And so I just can't square that in my mind. I can't square what I'm seeing versus what I'm being told. And that's just one instance of her kind of saying something and doing another.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the transparency, you're right. I saw a video clip today from Michael Carlos at San Antonio Current.
Great interview.
Where he interviewed her and he put her on the spot and said, "What do you not like about the term sheet that was offered?" She sidestepped the question. She couldn't. Yep. She basically went to, we need a new independent report. And the thing that I'm curious about too, and this goes back to, there's a little bit of ownership that needs to be done, not just on the Spurs, but on those who are pro Project Marvel that haven't really shown it. And it's the being a little bit more offensive about what she is trying to throw at them and kind of countering it. Because if she's going to do another independent study, which heaven knows how much that's going to cost the city, we're already in debt. Let's put more debt and just do another study. Yep. Well, if you're going to do that study, then I would like to know in that study, what are the effects if we don't do Project Marvel? What does this city look like in 20 years? How does it affect future events at the Alamo Dome? How does it affect future events at the convention center?
Yep.
Because I would want to hear from those leaders of the tourism industry, this is the second biggest industry in our city. How does that affect them? Where are we starting to lose that money? And when we start losing that money, what does that start affecting everything else? And, like I said, you're right, James. She's been getting pressed. She's sidestepping a lot of these. She should be held accountable on some of those things. Another thing that gets brought up a lot that she loves to talk about is revenue sharing, basically owning a piece of the Spurs so she can get revenue sharing. And I saw an article or an op-ed from Bob Rivard, who had a great point to make. Well, if we're going to do revenue sharing with the Spurs, then why aren't we doing it with our other Fortune 500 companies? Why isn't USAA going to do revenue sharing? Why isn't iHeartMedia and Valero going to do revenue sharing? And what does that mean for people like at the Pearl, like the restaurants at the Pearl? Are they going to be revenue sharing with the city as well? Where does that stop? Yep. And so, there's so many things that sound good in theory, but in the scheme of things, this is just throwing darts at the board to see what sticks. And she hasn't really brought the solutions, the logical solutions to them to warrant any of these thoughts.
Yeah. Well, and she compared us to Philadelphia, and then she talked about their independent study or whatever they did. And wasn't that the same firm that did ours? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was.
But then the other issue is because
there's ties.
You can't win in anything. It's the fact that there's ties to the Spurs in some way.
Cool.
Which the Spurs, I guess, elephant in the room, and I've heard a few people acknowledge this. I don't know how avoidable this was, but could have avoided this by choosing a different firm. I don't know if they choose a different firm if we're still here somehow. I don't know if anybody could possibly know that.
And then that's on the other city council members who agreed to do the study with CSL. That's not on the Spurs. The Spurs didn't conduct that study. That was city council who agreed on doing that study. And it must have slipped through the cracks that somebody didn't realize that, hey, this might be a red flag if somebody brings it up.
And also the comparisons to Philadelphia, I feel like it's at least worth bringing up that although the city limit populations are the same, that's it. That is it.
Yeah.
They are astronomically a bigger market. We might be the 7th biggest city in the country by population, but market-wise, we're 25th, 30th in that ballpark, depending on the website you look at.
Right.
That's a big deal. Also, Philadelphia, they could build an arena in Wilmington, Delaware, and it's not going to put anybody out. It's just not. And so the impact study that the city of Philadelphia is going to get is going to be so fundamentally different than what we get in San Antonio that I'm not sure if dying on that hill makes any sense at all.
No, I absolutely agree. And one thing that one thing that this cannot lead to is us talking again in a year about Project Marvel 2 or Project Marvel 3. And if it's continuing to get shut down and shut down and shut down, then that concerns me. Because that's how teams leave, is when you get, it's not one, you're not going to leave over one, but like multiple. If you get multiple no's from the city and you start to have a lot of issues and you're starting talking to a brick wall, that's when things can get a little sticky, I think.
Well, yeah, it's like at that point we're gonna be really short-sighted because, like John was saying earlier, we're gonna miss out on so much of that future revenue. We're gonna get passed up for for future Final Four weekend stuff like that. We're going to get passed up on NBA All-Star weekend. Like a lot of the things that really bring in a huge amount of people to the city where they spend just boatloads of money. And we're going to miss out on so much of that if we don't push forward with this sooner rather than later. So yeah, if we're still talking about this 2 years down the road, yeah, I think that why wouldn't the Spurs talk about potentially moving?
Well, and two things, or one thing that I haven't heard even questioned is she keeps pushing for this strategic pause. How long would this strategic pause be? Because she also keeps saying we have a lot of time, but if you do the math and look at what the Spurs have said, they'll play through their lease at the Frost Bank Center, which ends at the end of the 2031-2032 season. So that's a little less than 7 years from now. They estimate this project to take 57 months, and I think that's about accurate. And it's not getting cheaper with time.
No.
This price tag isn't going to go down if you kick the can down the road 6 months, a year.
James, I live in this space. My job is audio visual for new construction. I live in this space. What we're having to do is resend quotes to different people right before they're supposed to cut us a huge PO. That's the amount of question marks we have on tariffs. They change all the time.
We can't even decide what port to import our stuff from in my day job. It's crazy out there, but I don't understand what concessions is she looking to extract.
And so that's a good point. And that leads to the next thing, because AJ mentioned it. Yesterday, she has a press conference. She said about 20 times, I want to have a deal with the Spurs. The question is, what's that deal? Because, we can ask her that. She's going to avoid it. But I honestly think the deal is the Spurs pay for the whole thing. I think that's her definition of what a deal is. It's not going to be a mutual thing. It's going to be Spurs pay for all of it. And the only reason why I believe that is because if you watch that press conference yesterday and you see the people that surrounded her, that were supporting her, the people who are representative around her are part of community advocate organizations who are anti-Project Marvel. So when you're saying in front of them, I want a deal with the Spurs, but you're representing the people who don't want Project Marvel to happen, well, then what is that deal? And that deal can only mean that she wants them to take care of the entire bill. And that's just not going to happen. Nobody is going to let that happen.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that's where the conflicting things are. That's where people get confused by her, because it's, you say you want a deal, but everything that's going to happen is there's going to be a new roadblock. The reason why she wants this new independent study is because she wants the data to prove that these developments don't mean anything. They're not worth anything. If they're worth anything, it's worth $2 compared to the millions that's promised, right? That's the result she wants to see out of it. She said yesterday, well, if this new report comes out and they're the same as CSL, well, then I'll be fine with it. No, you're not. You're going to want another independent report to get the data that you want, to hang on that and keep using that until the next election to prove, hey, I'm right. This isn't worth our time and money, because the people you're representing, the people who voted you in, who helped get you into office, don't want this project to happen.
Yep.
And also, the disingenuousness around the messaging, she keeps floating out the $489 million that the city would be on the hook for, and that's fair, but that's also only 38% of the total cost of this arena. And she's not mentioning the Spurs' $2.1 billion pledge to fund other projects, help with the Dome, which can bring other events, All-Star Game, SummerSlam, Final Four. Because if you're to believe the rumors you've heard, or I've heard anyways, I don't know how verifiable they are, but I've heard the NCAA has told San Antonio, you're not getting another Final Four until you address the Dome. I've heard the WWE has told them the same thing about a Royal Rumble. You're not getting another one until you address the Dome. And so those are big business makers for this city. And the opportunity to continue having those is important. And the fact that the Spurs are willing to contribute that much money it's orders of magnitude more than the Thunder contributed to their entire arena project in Oklahoma City. And so, to your point, she's just going to find some other reason that it's not good enough. And I don't want to be too conspiratorial here. I'll get off my soapbox, but
No,
I did
add another one to it, man. Keep going.
AJ and Rob know this. I lean very left on pretty much all political issues on the spectrum. I did see that there was some third-party affiliations for some of the recently elected city council members. And I feel like a lot of them are sacrificing good at the altar of great. And maybe their motivations for doing so are a little bit less than ideal, in the sense that everybody loves to preach about the public good until the public good has a little bit of glitz and glamour on it.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's very true.
As someone who has spent a lot of time in downtown San Antonio, I can tell you that people go to downtown San Antonio. Like over the summer, they have stuff going on all the time. I was down there on like a random, was it Thursday or so? And there was like disco in the park at the new Hemisphere Park. Like, let's peel this back just one more layer too. The Frost Bank building that got built, that had to get city approval. And that is a huge, it changed the skyline of San Antonio. Hemisphere Park, like they literally transformed that entire area where we were doing our man on the street stuff. They transformed that entire area to make it more community friendly. So they're already leaning into this portion of the city that you can add more to. Like, I'm just thinking about the amount of people that were at that disco during the Hemisphere Community Outreach Park thing, because there was also tents and vendors and like this DJ and everyone was having a good old time. Like, it was a great atmosphere and it was for nothing. We didn't have anything going on downtown. It was just a community. And then you add that, or you change the background from just Market Street to the stadium, or you add different restaurants and different bars. And then all of a sudden, like what I've been saying for the longest time, all the river rats that work downtown, all of a sudden they're getting a weekend paycheck on a Tuesday because the Spurs happen to be playing the Lakers. Like, that's the type of things that people forget about. And it bothers me that no one's addressing how much good this can do. And that's my thing. I'm gonna go ahead and hang up and let you guys continue. I was kidding. But my thing is like, I know a lot of people will benefit from this, and you have to make the investment now in order to reap the rewards later. It's just one step back, two steps forward, guys.
There is a lot of, talk about this city growing and this city being the 7th biggest, and some of it, from Gina Jones herself. But I'll ask y'all this, and John, you're in San Antonio right now, right?
I am.
So you can probably speak pretty well to this. Has this city felt smaller than this debate has made it feel over the past week?
In what sense?
Like, just from like, this feels like a small town debate. Like, the tenor of this whole thing feels like kind of when Bernie built a 5-star hotel and people printed bumper stickers that said Bernie, Texas, gone forever.
Or naming the high school.
I mean, San Antonio has always been, the biggest small town you ever visited. I mean,
sure.
That's basically what it's been known for so many times, and the way that things have been operated around here. That's just how it is. That's what people have become accustomed to. I think more than anything else right now, it's, I think people feel more involved in what's going on because it is kind of it is tangible. It doesn't feel like these are people that the people that are discussing all this, even the city council, these aren't people that are in like, gold houses or anything like that. These are, our neighbors and people that, that are within the community. No, but it's funny. Rob mentioned in the beginning, and I agree. And that's the other thing that I think, I know we went through this whole spiel about, what's, Gina Ortiz Jones doing and yada yada. Fact of the matter is she's one vote of the entire city council. And the way that things are structured in San Antonio is that the city manager has the most control. The mayor doesn't really have much control. They're basically almost like the Queen of England in a way. They're there to shake hands, kiss babies, but really they end up being the wild card vote among the 10 districts of the 10 city council members. I think she has this strange idea that she's representing everybody in San Antonio, which I don't see it that way, because when 77,000 people in a $1.5 million city vote for you, that doesn't seem like 5% of the population is the only people supporting you at that point. It's not as many as you think it is. So that's kind of where all this is. So the processes are going to play in place. Thursday, I believe, is the vote, the resolution votes. I expect them to vote down her resolution for an independent study. Who knows if maybe somebody has a change of heart and says, hey, if you let us continue with agreeing to the term sheet, then we'll go ahead and give you your independent study, because that's how politics is supposed to work. You're supposed to kind of have a little give and take, right? Who knew? That we haven't seen that in politics in 20 something years.
Give me what I want now.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to force ourselves through the door.
Give me that internet money.
So I would expect that resolution to fail, and I would expect the resolution about the term sheet to pass. And at that point, it comes down to that November election. And that's where like I said in the beginning, I'm interested to see how the rest of this plays out. I'm interested to see if the Spurs get on the offensive, if people who are pro Project Marvel, like Eric Walsh, start, doing the media rounds. The only people who are doing the media rounds for pro Project Marvel are the former mayors who have been through all this.
And us.
And the funny thing is that while Gina Ortiz is attacking the Spurs, she's also attacking the former mayors and everybody else, because,
in the county.
Once again, that's how things work nowadays. If everything in the past was wrong, well, then they're wrong and we're right, and we're gonna change things. I'm gonna be different than those people. That's how we
Trumpian way of doing things.
Right? So, going forward, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to start speaking up, who's going to start giving the pro messaging. How are they going to combat the anti-messaging? And a lot of the combating the anti-messaging is going to be just doing something simple as showing the term sheet. I mean, that's the other issue with all this. And as I mentioned before, she has a point about transparency to an extent. When this project was presented, this was a secret. This was something that was a brainchild of Ron Nirenberg and Eric Walsh after the home game at the Dome 3 years ago. They thought it's a fantastic idea. Spurs need to come back to downtown San Antonio. They can be the centerpiece of this bigger plan that we want to do. And they started working with others, right? That's what we've read. And so, the Spurs it didn't, at least from what I've heard, and from what I heard is from my former colleague, Don Harris, who has mentioned this several times, was that they approached the Spurs about this project. And so, the Spurs, that's a proactive approach we normally don't see in city government when it comes to these sports arenas. Usually it's waiting till the last minute, right? It's the team that says, hey, by the way, our lease is running out in 3 years and we need a new arena now, And the fact that this was happening so far in advance was kind of a good thing. And so while Gina Ortiz does have a point of why are we rushing this, there is the counterpoint that was kind of mentioned by somebody here, I believe James, that you don't rush it. You're just building off the momentum at this point. And if you start to lose the momentum, it starts to take longer. The opposition starts to, create their narratives, and then you lose control of it, and then you lose the vote. And part of what's been happening right now is that it took a while for, anybody to kind of acknowledge the Spurs' contribution to this. They finally acknowledged it, but by that point, people are already running these wild theories of, oh, they're not going to contribute enough, and city, who's paying for this? And then there was the initial, I don't know if it was a term sheet, but the numbers started to float out a little bit. Was it 500 million for the arena, 500 million for development? And then it leads to what happened earlier this week with the term sheet, where we actually have hard numbers. But at this point now, the people who were on the fence before, hearing, oh, we're going to have this Project Marvel, this is going to happen, I guess we have to pay for it no matter what, we're already saying, I don't want to do this. And then they're getting rallied by somebody who's saying, we don't need to do this. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. We don't need to do this. Well, then you're already losing the narrative because you haven't controlled the narrative. Nobody who's been on the pro side of things has controlled the narrative enough to combat everything that's going on. And I think the thing that I think that not many people who are pro Project Marvel, the Spurs fans who are like, hey, this is going to happen. We have enough Spurs fans to vote, yes for this. I think there's a lot of people who've been on the fence that are starting to agree with what Gina Ortiz-Jones is saying, that this vote is going to be a lot closer in November if people don't start speaking up pro the project. And it would not be surprising one bit if the county vote fails. And if that does happen, then yes, this project is on life support at that point.
Yeah, and that's the thing, we've already seen it is 2025. We have numbers that say voter turnout in odd numbered years isn't very good. We've seen it because, to your point, we got 77,000 votes in a mayoral election in a city pushing 2 million people.
And it went to a runoff.
Turnout is going to be a huge factor. And the Spurs better get that Manu Ginobili Project Marvel commercial cracking now, because they are facing legitimate opposition, whether it's warranted or not. That to your point, John, that wasn't just a random collection of abuelitas out on City Hall steps yesterday. That was a targeted group of people that she assembled to take a stand against this project.
Right. Exactly.
It's John's old fans.
Voters skew old, and that's just the fact, especially in these non-presidential election years.
I used to ask John,
Spurs are going to have to rally this issue.
I used to ask John, I was like, hey, John, like, so when you're on TV a lot, like, you got a lot of fans, right? And he's like, I mean, if they're like 75 years old and a little abuelitas out there, absolutely.
That's how I got hilarious. My picture up at Ruthie's on West Avenue. Although they tell you when they put your picture up at Ruthie's, they don't give you a free taco out of it. You just get your picture up and that's it. So that was a little disappointing.
$6.99, thank you.
That's funny.
At the end of the day, here's now with the vote, is it just 50% or does it have to be 70? Do we know?
I believe it's just 50.
Yeah, I assume it's just majority rules.
All right, cool. I think that's possible. The thing that will help all of this is if the Spurs get out to a hot start. If the Spurs get out to a hot start, like, that's it's because then what's going to happen is you just give the opposition more ammo when they say, well, look at the record. They suck and they got the greatest player. Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, that's a tough thing to overcome. But if the team's winning and all of a sudden we're sitting here going, hey, but like, look at this team. Like, they're a playoff team. We could definitely do it. So, I think winning definitely cures all, but also I hate that argument too, because who got new stadiums recently? Because I know that those teams sucked. Didn't the Hawks or someone got one? They suck. Clippers, they suck. Like there, a lot of these teams aren't good and they're getting new stadiums. So I don't want to hear that.
Okay, so this is within the time we've been recording this podcast. I just started to look at my phone. According to Carolina Teague, all 4 council members expected to vote no on Project Marvel are tied to the Democratic Socialists of America. I had no idea.
Interesting. Yeah. Patrick in the comments section, over 2 months away from the vote, maybe a little early for the Spurs to try to control the narrative. If you're explaining now, you're losing. This week will pass.
But still, there's no such thing as too early. I think they are losing now because they are not explaining, is what John is saying.
Right. And they could get buried by due diligence, because you can keep doing due diligence until you're blue in the face. And to what extent will that kill, like we were saying earlier, all of the momentum that we're building as a young team that's about to blossom into something that needs this kind of downtown area?
Well, I'll speak on behalf of our commenter because I know who it is. It's my brother.
Yeah. You guys are pretty close, right?
My own personal adversary, sometimes.
I know the feeling.
No, and I get what he's trying to say, because really what it's going to come down to is, Gina Ortiz-Jones has been on a hot streak for about 2 weeks, but how long are you going to be able to keep that up? Is she going to be able to keep that energy up all the way until November? And really what it comes down to is you don't want to tell people now, yes, to go vote, because, if you tell them now, but you don't tell them later, then it defeats the purpose. They're going to forget about it. You're going to see the push when it gets closer to November. When it gets closer to election time, you're definitely going to see a whole lot more ads about that. I do want to make a point, though, because AJ was talking about how, the factor, the people who were deflecting about, the Spurs need to be better. So I think our mayor broke some news last night as I was watching the town hall meeting, or the District 10 town hall, or whatever it was. She claimed that the Spurs now have the 2 best players in the NBA. So when did we get Giannis?
Who's the other one?
Yeah, like, wait, we don't have SGA or Jokic. Like, what are we talking about here?
Does she know something about De'Aaron Fox's upcoming season that I don't? That we don't?
I don't know. But my first thing was
Riley Minix.
I thought we traded for Giannis last night, and I didn't know. And I thought we were getting a GOJ bomb.
I think we need to investigate her online sportsbook activity to see if she's got any like MVP futures on Wemby or De'Aaron Fox, because we could have a scandal there.
Yeah, she needs to do some due diligence on some stats at this point.
The thing about the vote coming up, though, what happens right before the vote? Spurs start, so they're inherently going to have at least 100,000, 250,000 people watching those games, especially the early ones, because a lot of us want to see what they look like. That's when you run the ads. That's when you put in your Manu Ginobili. That's when you put in all this other stuff.
And all I'm saying is 3 of our first 4 games against the Pelicans, the Nets, the Raptors, we could start off 3-1 real hot, and people could be real excited about the Spurs. How
good are the Mavericks going to be? They could be 4-0.
Yeah, it could be 4-0.
But anyways, like, oh, the train just left the station. Sorry, someone else take over. Someone pick up.
I was looking at the first 10 games because AJ mentioned that we may talk about that. And I wanted to mention that I think that the ceiling I see is about 7-3. I think reality, it's probably 6-4. It's a very favorable start to the schedule, because of the teams that they're playing, considering how bad they are. And then, there's those, wild cards like the Mavericks, the Pelicans that we're not really sure.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Lakers now that Luka might have had a little owie wowie. So
he just dropped 28 and 7 like earlier today. I watched. I watched some of that game.
Okay.
He got 3 steals and he actually got like a really nice block. I was like, oh, he's fine. He's actually playing defense. He's okay. But at the end of the day, I still feel like as soon as he goes back to LA, he's going to start putting on weight. He's off season Luka right now.
Dude,
he's
those US preservatives,
the problem. Off season Luka.
Well, I mean, usually, I feel like Luka Doncic came when he was sitting out for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden he was like, all those pictures of him just lounging came out, and it's like, all right, let's lay off him a little bit. But now he's skinny Luka.
He's like, put a shirt on. We get it. You lost weight.
But yeah, we do have a really favorable start to the year. So I agree with you, John. We could easily start 7-3, and people could be really, really high on the Spurs because we're playing a lot of pedestrian teams early on. Yeah, we're seeing the Suns. Yeah, the Pelicans twice early on. Yeah, we're looking pretty strong. But is that going to be enough to sway people's decisions in terms of Marvel stuff? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think you can appeal to civic pride a little bit in the sense that San Antonio doesn't like losing things. We didn't like losing the Stars. We didn't like losing the Rampage. We don't like the idea of losing the Spurs to a Johnny-come-lately city like Vegas that's going to throw in a lot of money. But I heard Rob Thompson on ESPN radio this morning in San Antonio just kick the scenario around. Now, he's generally of like mind as we are, but imagine a city like Vegas throwing something like this at an organization that has Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, and Dylan Harper, and all the excitement that comes with that. Yeah. Like a Vegas arena with those guys would print money. It would just print money. And so like Vegas, Seattle, Nashville. There are cities that would line up to take this offer the Spurs have given them.
Oh, 100%. And I got to highlight this comment from Four Paws in the Grave. Ironic, the council members who oppose Project Marvel are members of a political movement with messaging the Spurs as an organization have generally supported. I agree. The irony is not lost upon us as a panel.
Well, Pop has supported the Holtz.
Yeah,
the Holt's
right.
quite the opposite.
That's true. That's true.
And being in the buildings with our partner, I was listening to Rudy J made a great point, man. Like, one, don't take the first offer, which the city didn't do, but also, the Spurs have kind of been assholes about interviewing players, and Pop got on the microphone and yelled at us one time. They're just like, they haven't been as open, but also that's the organization in terms of the community. They've been very open and very welcoming. And also, I think it'd be a great idea to name the area the Duncan District. I think that would be perfect, because I think it's a fucking sin that the San Antonio in general doesn't have a statue somewhere of Tim Duncan and Popovich and David Robinson. I know we talked about statues a couple podcasts ago.
We did.
But dude, I gotta tell you, it's a fucking sin that we don't have one somewhere.
All those people that complain about how the Spurs have treated the city as an organization, or just treat outside entities as an organization, are the same people that would open up their legs for Jerry Jones and say, "Please, sir, step on it again." just all your weight. There's no ideological consistency there between, and a lot of it applies to some of the sports media in San Antonio, at least perceptionally. There's a lot of
San Antonio sports media needs to do better at times.
We deserve better from our sports media.
They lost a lot when John left. That's why we brought him back.
Well, I want to go back to James' point real quick, because I know that was also the fun discussion last week about relocation. They're going to move to Austin and all this other stuff. At first I wasn't comfortable with it, but more and more I'm starting to believe that this isn't that is very unlikely to happen as long as the Holtz are in charge. I think that's the thing people need to remember. And I think that people need to remember that the Holtz are ingrained in this community and have been ingrained in this community long enough, in this region long enough, that as long as they have the keys to the car, it's not leaving. And they're going to do everything to try to make it work. Now, I do think this is, when I'm 6 feet under, I do think at some point the Spurs may end up having an arena probably in between San Antonio and Austin. I do. I think the region's going to be so big, they're going to end up being, similar to what the Cowboys and the Rangers have something that, has both of the communities where they can get the support of the businesses. I think that's eventually down on the horizon. But I do think that right now the Holtz kind of control this fully, and I think they're going to want to play nice as much as possible. I do think, though, this is where, once again, it's about the rhetoric about the Spurs. It's about how do we paint them. It's about how are people, viewing them, and are they starting to view them as the bad guys? Are they starting to be anti-Spurs? And if they start to feel that that the community is starting to turn anti-Spurs on them, then I think then you're going to have a significant fracture in a relationship that's grown over 52 years. And at that point, who knows what happens? And on top of that, the Holtz also have to serve, the millionaires or the billionaires that are also invested in the team. They have a stake in the game too. This is a business thing that they have to do. And it's not that those people would pressure the Holtz to move the team, but they might just leave. So who's paying for that? Because as we've seen with all these professional franchises, there are these private equity companies that are getting involved. There are, other billionaires joining other billionaires to buy these teams. No one can afford a team by themselves anymore, unless you're Steve Ballmer, right? And for sure, the Holtz cannot afford the Spurs by themselves. That's why they sold them off. That's why they sold off portions of the team when they did. And so at a certain point, they're going to try to hold on as tight as they can. They're going to be that Spider-Man meme, holding the bus back. But they're going to have to let go if they can't afford it anymore. If they can't do that. That's why the Stars left. That's why the Rampage left. Because all that was being funded by Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker and all the championships they were winning. And as soon as that gravy train left, they couldn't afford those franchises anymore, and that's why they sold them off, and that's why they ended up going to Vegas.
Well, look west. I mean, the same thing that you're describing there, John, has happened with the Lakers.
Yep.
That is
And the Celtics.
relatively well, the Celtics is a bit different. I think the Spurs situation is pretty analogous with the Lakers, though, because like the Busses, the Holts are, in terms of comparing to other NBA owners, relatively cash poor. They have outside income other than the Spurs, but they're towards the bottom in terms of just net worth of their of themselves, of the controlling owners of this team. And so, the Lakers sold recently to, I think, Mark Shapiro, and he's based in LA. And so obviously the Lakers aren't going anywhere. But the Sonics weren't going anywhere either at one time until Clay Bennett, with significant ties from Oklahoma City, came in and bought the team. And so when you're dealing with a cash poor owner, cash poor in the biggest quotation marks possible, but when you're dealing with a billionaire, billionaires like to get more money. How can billionaires get more money? Well, they sell one thing and move on to the next. If someone comes in with a Godfather offer that has a Vegas background, that has a Nashville background, that has a Seattle background, all that security that is built in with the Holts running the show isn't necessarily guaranteed. We don't know how long they'll be able to, like you said, John, hold that bus back.
You know who's another person that you can compare that to? And it's real simple, right up the road, Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban did the exact same
Nailed
thing.
it.
And look what has happened to that franchise. The 20 plus years of goodwill that he built up with that franchise went away in one random night in January. And it wasn't because they're moving, it's because they just sold the franchise player. And Cuban had built this culture of, we don't do that. We take care of our guys. We build, we have a culture here, right? And that's the thing that you potentially lose and could be potentially dealing with if there were any kind of changes that happened in ownership with the Spurs, majority or not majority, but the strong ownership of
that controlling stake.
That controlling stake. Because right now, the Holts know how to deal with people in the city council right now. They know how to deal with people within the city. But then if it's somebody else who's in charge who definitely doesn't have San Antonio ties, well, then that opens the door for them being like, we're going to have it our way. And if not, I'm going to just take them. I tried.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. But
we don't want an outsider losing their patience. That's for sure.
No.
I mean, people were reticent of Michael Dell, and he's barely even an outsider.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that, but I also have to give a quick shout out to our official sponsor, the Solar Scouts. If you need clean, reliable solar energy, visit thesolarscouts.com/bums. They give you a free consultation. They'll hook you up. They'll help you determine which package makes sense for you and your family. Make sure that you get a clean, reliable electric bill. Go ahead and get rid of your former bill, and they'll help you save a whole bunch of money. The people at Solar Scouts are very friendly, and they have a great product.
Put solar panels on the new arena.
And
why not?
You heard Rob. Those helpful people will help you with your package.
Absolutely. They got all kinds of plans. They got all kinds of ways to help you save some money and do it in an environmentally friendly way. Why not? Yeah. Hit up the solarscouts.com/bums. Figure out how to get yourself some clean, reliable solar energy.
Especially on a day like today, some serious lightning strikes out here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Your power goes out. You got a reliable backup, even if it's storming or a heat wave.
Luke Cornett is going to be a reliable backup for us this year, which is why we're going to start 8-2.
Well, I mean, I'm high on Luke Cornett because I don't want to put this into the universe, but the likelihood of Wemby missing 10, 12, 15 games is, fairly high throughout the course of a season. And, Luke Cornett can hold down that backup spot, be a decent rim protector. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of the Cornett contest, but he's a guy that can handle front court responsibilities for a month, and I'm not going to bat an eye at it.
I will not rest until LaMarcus Aldridge gets proper credit for inventing the Cornet contest.
I mean, he may have invented it, but I think Cornet kind of perfected it and brought it to.
He absolutely perfected it, but LaMarcus invented it.
Dude, we're gonna have everyone doing that shit on defense now. You know that.
But if Wemby does it might actually be effective.
Dude, Wemby does it. He was doing it whenever he was before he even got drafted.
Wemby's gonna get called for goaltending doing it.
Bro, he straight up.
I just can't wait for it to become popular so we see it at YMCA games with 6-year-olds trying to
do it. Just kids jumping. They're just going to be doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you I don't think you understand why they're doing it. Okay. But yeah, that's really funny. If we see it in CYO, then it would shock me just to see kids not shooting Steph Curry style threes.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna do it in their knee pads and shit. Because I remember CYO, you had to wear knee pads. I'm like, why are we wearing knee pads? This is stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, youth basketball.
But guys, do we have some dunks that we need to get to?
God, I feel like I was just dunking this entire episode.
I mean, it feels like we've just been slamming on everything Project Marvel, and But yeah, I feel like we should maybe redirect our energy towards some dunks. James, are you feeling dunky today?
AJ, I'm going to cede my turn to you. Why don't you go first? I still need some time.
Well, I feel like we should have our guest go first. John.
Well, everyone, just no one.
John's like, no, send it to
I'm gonna keep talking about things behind the curtain. And once again, AJ gave me like about an hour or 2 hour notice about, hey, this is a segment we do, and make sure you have one. I'm like, oh shoot, I need to find something. I'm gonna not do something Project Marvel related because we already talked about it enough. I'm gonna do somebody that has been bothering me a lot for the last couple years, and it's I can't tell if it's his fault or I'm just getting old. And that person is Adam Silver. Because I understand things change. It's not the 90s anymore. You know, we have social media now. They're streaming.
Mm-hmm.
But Tuesday night Peacock games that go coast to coast, and the Spurs have one of them, playing against the Kings at 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope that game doesn't go to double overtime because you'll probably be waking up and getting ready for your day when that one's over.
That's insane.
It's kind of insane. And we've been seeing it a lot lately. It's not just the NBA. You see it in other sports, the NFL, college football. You know, the Big Ten has always had this, angry, I'm going to scream at the cloud because we made a lot of money, but guess what? Fox wants us to play at 11 a.m. every Saturday. That's the price you have to pay for these billion-dollar deals. Now, the problem is that the fans aren't getting the multi-billion dollars out of it. The players are, but the fans are going to suffer from it. And so now you have games on Prime, you have games on Peacock exclusives. 1,000 places you have to find the games. You have to, spend an arm and a leg just to watch an entire season. Never mind trying to, watch FanDuel Sports Network or whatever it's called now. It's just a challenge. And I love the NBA. I love basketball. I have a kid that I hope loves the NBA and basketball the same way I did too. It's just a challenge to try to figure out where to find these games, when to watch them, how to watch them, how much do I have to pay to watch them, and is it worth it? Because otherwise, if I want to see, Wemby jump from the, half court line to dunk it, I'm going to see it on Twitter in 5 seconds after it happens. And I'm going to see 1,000 other tweets and say, oh my God, did you see that? And yeah, I saw it 5 seconds later because somebody tweeted it out. So I get that there's an evolution to all of it. I just hate how this is going. I haven't been a fan of Adam Silver and the way he's been doing things lately because I think he's diminishing the product. But like I said, I think I'm just old man screaming at the cloud right now.
Well, no, I think that's a popular old head take, and part of me really does agree with that as well. It seems like he's prioritized entertainment rather than quality basketball, and you see that with a lot of things like the All-Star Weekend. It's like people aren't even interested in that because of all the changes and all the things that have been implemented on his behalf. So I think there's a lot of sense right there and a very worthwhile dunk. AJ, what you thinking? Who Who you dunking?
I am going to dunk on preseason football injuries. I hate them so much. It drives me insane. Not only just like I feel bad for the players that, probably were ready to play the season, but for the organization itself and everyone that is involved. Mine's a little more personal. Texas Tech recently lost their running back to a torn ACL, Quentin Joyner from USC. He was coming back to Texas. He's from Manor in order to, play in front of his family. And we're really looking forward to having our three-headed monster with him kind of leading that pack. But unfortunately, yesterday, the news broke that he tore his ACL and will be out for the 2025 season. So that is very, very sad. I am not happy about it. But we have two other running backs, which is great, but I just feel bad for him, and it kind of puts a little damper on the start of the season. But nonetheless, still ready to go.
That makes sense. Yeah. No, yeah, that's a very worthwhile dunk as well. Hey, we're 2 for 2 on the dunks right now.
James?
Okay.
Rob,
you want me to go, or do you want?
You know what? I'm a little fired up about my dunk, so I'm gonna go ahead and go. Okay. First of all, John Wall announcing his retirement. I was a big John Wall fan back in the day, but I was seeing a bunch of stuff that was saying, John Wall is overrated and all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, were you not watching this man play basketball in the 2010s and watching him go coast to coast and be the fastest player on the planet with a basketball in his hand? It's like, whenever I look at things like that, it's people get so lost in the moment that we can't even appreciate a guy that's a multiple-time All-Star, a guy that was absolutely one of the best offensive engines in the league when he was at his peak. And yeah, I just want to give John Wall some flowers because, he announces his retirement and then all of a sudden people feel like this is the time to hate on him and
ranking it.
And so, I understand that he was paid a lot of money later on in his career and didn't really play that well or didn't play at all, really. But at the end of the day, when he was playing and he was at his best, he was a really, really great basketball player. And let's not shit on a guy that just announced his retirement and act like his career wasn't anything. So all the people hating on John Wall right now, you got dunked on.
All right, so my dunk is less serious than anything we talked about, but I won't get into why these people are doing what they're doing. But to the people that are trying to besmirch and take down Miss Rachel, I need you to stop. I need you to stop, cease and desist forever, and leave that woman alone because she is a modern day saint. And also, if you get rid of Miss Rachel, no one else can hold my son's attention like that. I swear to God, my kid is 6 months old. I swear to God, he will get into contortionist positions to try to see the TV if he hears her voice. The
Probably should get that checked out.
The spell this woman has on that child is mind-bending. And to the people that want to, that are all in their feelings because she has different views about certain hot button issues, get over it. Please get over it because it's just children's entertainment. It's not that serious.
Right. Do not cancel that woman on James's behalf.
Leave Miss Rachel alone.
Leave Miss Rachel alone.
Exactly.
Leave her alone. Oh my goodness. But yeah, honestly, there would be a lot of upset young children if that was to be the case. So let's hope that never happens.
Yeah, we had Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and dude, that shit was lit. The movie's phenomenal.
Well,
God,
so
the movie's so good.
There's Daniel Tiger now, which I mean is like the delineation of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, since we can't have that anymore. So yeah.
Yeah. But either way, yeah, a very worthwhile dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had some good dunks right there. And yeah, that means we're reaching the end of the episode. And if you've been listening to all of this Project Marvel talk, you've been listening to these fantastic dunks, we appreciate you. We love you. This podcast would not be the same without you. All your comments, the engagement, all the views, whether you're watching us on TikTok, you're watching us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're watching us, wherever you're being a bum, we really, really appreciate it, because like I said, this would not be the same without you. But yeah, that sounds like a good episode. Let's yeah, and John, real quick, we end every episode with a Go Spurs Go. So we're gonna do just a little countdown and then give a Go Spurs Go. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. And on the count of 3, Go Spurs Go. And 1, 2, 3, go!
Go!
Spurs!
Spurs.
Go!
Appreciate you being on, John.
Thank you, guys.